Bulcock, I hope you're well. My name is Jennifer Bulcock. I'm a nutrition consultant and I am the creator of the Habit Fix, which is an online weight loss tool. So Muscle Food have asked me today to speak to you about sugar and sugar in sauces. Now, sauces such as your HP sauce, brown sauce, ketchup, this kind of thing. The thing that most of us probably squirt all over our plate to make food taste a little bit nicer. So I'll start with the main one, which is probably what most of us go for, and that is a little bit of tomato ketchup, a little bit of red dip, as my kids like to call it. So the suggested serving size for tomato ketchup is 15 grams. Now, I'm sure most of you probably don't know what 15 grams actually looks like. So I'm all set and prepared to show you what 15 grams looks like. 15 grams is just shy of a tablespoon. So let me move that one out of the way. So this is a tablespoon here. Can you see? Tablespoon of tomato ketchup. And the amount of sugar in that is displayed, hang on, here. Sorry, I don't want to tip it, all the sugar tip everywhere. Last time I did this, I got breadcrumbs all over my keyboard, so I'm not making that mistake and getting sugar everywhere. So that's what 15 grams looks like. So 15 grams is actually quite a small amount. And then what I asked my kids to do yesterday was I got them a plate of chips and I said, right, get the ketchup and squirt as much on as you would put on your chips if you didn't have to worry about portion control. And obviously that's what they did, and the chips were covered, and it didn't look like very much when it was scattered all over the plate of chips. But when I weighed the plate before and after, it was nearly 100 grams of ketchup. So this is what 100 grams of ketchup actually looks like. And there on the plate is how much sugar is in 100 grams of ketchup. So if you compare the two, the portions, so that's what on this side is the 15 gram portion, which is the suggested portion as to what you should have and the associated sugar with that. And then actually what probably most people squirt all over their plate without really thinking about it, and would go away thinking, oh yeah, I've had about a portion of ketchup on the plate. And then when you look at the bottle and think, oh well, you know, if you're tracking your calories and you've not weighed it and you're just trying to, you know, guesstimate, then a 15 gram portion is 15 calories. And that doesn't sound like very much, but actually, if you've had more like 100 gram portion, you're really looking at over 100 calories in energy. And then when we look at the sugar amounts, which sugar in itself we don't need to be massively overly worried about, but it does add to additional calorie intake. And from an oral health point of view, sugar is damaging to our teeth. So we need to be aware of how much we're consuming on a day-to-day basis. And the current guidelines, the current recommendations are that we don't exceed more than 5% of our total energy intake to come from free sugar. So for a typical adult, that's approximately about 30 grams of sugar. So in 100 grams of ketchup, there is 22.8 grams of sugar. So that is over 2/3 of your recommended daily intake of sugar, purely from some ketchup that you squirted all over your chips on your plate. So in this scenario, what I would say, first of all, is you can switch out to these sort of alternatives, the less sugar, and that is going to take out excess calories as well, because these are lower in calories. With this one, you're looking at, so this is 64 calories per 100 grams compared to the 102 calories per 100 grams. So quite a drop there. And obviously that over the course of a week would add up. And the same with things like your HP sauce. These are quite a significant difference as well. So you've got 122 calories per 100 grams in there, dropping down to 86 calories per 100 grams there. And again, there's the reduction in the sugars as well. So you've got 15 grams of sugar per 100 grams compared to 23 grams of sugar per 100 grams. So all this adds up over the week. But if you are wanting to really go for it and cut out all those additional extra calories and extra sugar intake from condiments and sauces that you're putting on your foods, then there are some other alternatives as well. So my number one actually is salsa. I don't have anything to demonstrate with salsa, but salsa, for a whole jar of salsa, you're looking at only 100 calories in the whole jar, and salsa can really go a long way. So, and it's got the fiber in it because you've got all the chunks of veggies, and if you like salsa, that's a great way to to season your food and make your food taste nice without adding in loads of additional unnecessary calories and loads of extra sugar intake as well. I do also like to use these jalapenos. I think they're a really great way to make your veggies taste nice. I particularly like to pan fry a little bit of spinach, season with a tiny bit of salt, and then put a load of jalapenos on the top. Another one which I've suggested to my clients before who maybe don't particularly like the taste of veggies and they want to kind of get themselves to a stage where they can eat greens, is mint sauce. Now, most people would think mint sauce, that's just for your lamb chops, but actually mint sauce can season your veggies quite nicely so that they are palatable. And what you can do is you basically, like a baby weaning yourself, the amount of seasoning that you put on the veggies, you just reduce slowly, so that you wean yourself to actually enjoy the taste of the vegetables without having to put loads of sauces on them. Now, if you are from Sheffield, which I am Sheffield, born and bred kind of gal, then this is a top seasoning for your, well, for anything really, because you can put it on alt really. So Henderson's relish, a little bit of Hendo's on your food. And I've noticed as well on this that it actually says gluten-free, which my son is going to be ecstatic about because he's celiac. And so having something extra to season his food with is going to be great for him, especially with it being a bit of Henderson's relish. So I'd recommend that. And if you're not living in this sort of Sheffield location, sorry, you'll have to do with a bit of Worcester sauce instead, because obviously Worcester sauce isn't as good as Hendo's. But also, I mean, you can get hold of different sauces from Muscle Food as well. They do this fantastic range of Cheeky Boy sauces. These are, you still need to have portion control with these. And what I would say is the more hot or spicy the sauce is, the less of it that you need in order to season your food. And usually the energy amount and the sugar amount is much lower if it's much more spicy. So if you enjoy and if you like spicy hot sauces, then that could be a way to switch away from the more sugary sweetened sauces that are adding in lots of additional calories. So again, these are really nice. There's this is Berlin, this is hot, so this is really hot. You only need a tiny amount of this and it will go a long way to season your food. This one, my kids actually like this one. This is coconut hot sauce. It is still quite hot, but it's not as mild as the Berlin 49 one. And then we've got the Harry Redder's hot sauce. So there's those three different sauces that you can get from Muscle Food as well. And again, because they are quite hot, you're not going to need very much of them, and they do go a long way. But like I said, you don't need to be overly stressed about purposely looking for low sugar. What we should be thinking overall is reducing excess calorie intake, and having excess sugar does add to that excess calorie intake, and also sugar is not great for oral health, so that's the reason to be thinking about reducing our overall sugar intake. So that's why I suggest maybe looking at the low sugar options instead, and then you're not having to necessarily really reduce your portion control to take out those additional calories. So let's have a look at some of these questions. I don't know if it's going to let me scroll. Let me do it on my phone, because I remember last time when I tried to scroll through, it wouldn't let me do that. So I'll see if there's any questions. It is going to be a quick, sort of short live feed today, because I have got appointments that I have to dash off to. But if you have any questions, if you post them in, I'll try and get back to them in the next 5 minutes. Gluten-free is something I couldn't get. I couldn't get it, as most stuffs are with gluten and really hard to distinguish. Well, if for something to be labelled as gluten-free, Devendra, then it has to have less than 20 parts per million of gluten. That's the law on gluten-free labelling. So what I would suggest is just double check the labelling, and usually in the allergen section in the small print they'll have a bit that will say, made on a production line that also handles gluten, that kind of thing. So if you have celiac disease, I would say it's a case of taking a risk assessment. If you are celiac, then probably eating something that has been in a factory that also handles gluten-containing foods on the same production line, it's probably not worth taking that risk. Okay, let me have a look. So, Justin, parents should be educated in what they are giving their kids. There is a reason we have got a huge amount of obese kids who will die before their parents. That's interesting. Obviously, childhood obesity is significantly on the rise, and we have, this is an epidemic. We have a problem. But I think we're on a generation of parents now, people who are parents now, who are in maybe their 30s. When we were at school, there were huge cuts to the curriculum for home economics. It wasn't seen as a core subject, and I don't know if any of you remember, but you would do it on a rotation where you do just one sort of technology subject a quarter. So I think we have a generation of parents now that don't understand food and don't understand how to cook, and we live such stressful lives that it's seen as a luxury afforded to those who have the time and see it as a hobby to be interested in food, rather than it being part of our lifestyle and part of our culture, that we should be raised knowing how to cook and how to eat and knowing what foods are. So I've had to learn since becoming an adult. I would say that during my formative years, I wasn't particularly interested in food. It was part of the journey that I went on since having children, that I got into nutrition as a hobby initially before I studied and became educated in nutrition. So had I not done that and seen it as a hobby initially, then I wouldn't have the education that I have now to be able to pass on to my children. And that is quite sad, in that we've got parents who are so stressed, struggling to pay the gas meter, struggling to make ends meet. They haven't got time to think about, is this the right food to feed my kids? They've got to think, I've got half an hour to put something in the oven, feed my kids, then go back out to my second job. Everyone has these very, very stressful lives. And yes, it would be great if in this rose-tinted spectacle world we could say everyone should have the time to think about things in this amount of detail. But in reality, we live in a world where there is severe social deprivation, where parents are living in severe poverty and having to rely on food banks to feed their families. So it's not as clear cut to say, oh, it's the parents' fault for feeding the kids junk food. There's multifaceted reasons as to why we have children who are obese, and it isn't just simply a case of saying that's lazy parenting, because there's all sorts that go into it. But very good point, Justin. No need to be rude. I didn't think anyone was being rude. The kids shouldn't have to watch their weight or measure things. You'll make your kids ill and obese. Well, if you have children who are already overweight, then potentially, not obviously telling your kids that you're doing it, but as you are, as the parent, if you're in charge of the food preparation, it would probably be a good idea to start saying, paying some attention to portion control. For example, one of my kids is actually slightly underweight. He's the one who's got celiac disease, because when he gets gluten, he becomes malnourished and he goes off his food. So for him, for something like this, let me give you an example. Mayonnaise, we would give him the full fat mayonnaise. My daughter, who likes to eat lots and lots of food and probably helps herself a little bit too often to things out of the drawer in our kitchen, we'd probably give her the light mayonnaise, because one needs the extra energy, the other doesn't need the extra energy. So it's little things like that, as far as the kids are concerned, what they've got on their plate looks exactly the same. They don't see any difference. And I think it's important as a parent to not make your kids aware that you are treating them differently. But also, to educate them about energy balance, about nutrition and food and what goes into what we eat. So it's not a case of that you're going to set them up with unhealthy approach to food. I think you're setting them up with a really useful life skill that they can create a healthy, balanced plate of food without any guilt-ridden relationship with the choices that they're making either. So let me just go through the rest of the questions. Not enough to buy muscle food for their less sugar versions. I'm not sure, Vincent. Adam, is bread really that bad? No, bread is great. I eat bread every day. Obviously, if you have celiac disease, you're going to have to go for gluten-free bread. But yeah, bread is absolutely fine. Obviously, if you go for wholemeal or whole grain versions, there's going to be more fibre in that. But obviously, white bread is high in calcium too. So there's no reason to cut out bread from your diet, unless, of course, by eating bread, it puts you into a calorie surplus, and therefore, if you're wanting to lose weight by taking out the bread, helps you lose weight, then that would be, a reason to do that. But if you take out bread from your diet and then you start craving it and end up having a big bread binge at the weekend, probably not a good idea. So that's why everything in moderation is probably the best answer. Chris, you swapped out to salsa. Brilliant. Salsa's great. I think it's people think that salsa is particularly bad because it's associated with dips and with like chips and salsa and chips and what are they called? I can't think of the word. Nachos. My brain went dead. Nachos. But actually, nachos combined with like hummus and salsa, it can be quite a balanced meal, that, because you're getting all the fibre in the veggies, fibre in the chickpeas, hummus, and combined with the tortilla chip, it makes a complete amino acid protein with the hummus. So yeah, I think chips and dip can be quite a good choice. Good info, muscle food. Thank you, Glenn. Donna has gone to sleep. Melanie says hi. So I think I'm up to date. There's no more questions in there. If you do have any more questions about anything that I've discussed today, feel free to carry on commenting. And when I've finished working today, I will try and get into your comments and get back to you if you have any questions at all. You can head over to my page, which is Jennifer Bulcock, Healthy Mum of 3. I think it's tagged in the post. Give me a follow. I do have my next intake for my group. If you're interested, feel free to send me a message and find out more about that. But ultimately, the reason for this post is really to just focus on where we can save ourselves consuming excess sugar, which in turn is excess calories, and simple switches that you can make throughout your diet, like the condiments and sauces that you put on your foods and what you feed your kids, can save cumulatively over the week a lot of energy that is not necessarily needed, and particularly reduce our overall sugar intake, which we do know on the whole we do as a country consume too much sugar. So by reducing our sugar intake, that will reduce our calorie intake and also help with oral health. So have a fabulous day. I hope you like my Christmas tree. Isn't it gorgeous? Feel free to get in contact if you have any questions at all, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Bye.